If women had the power to stop it, it would have ended the first time a woman was beaten, the first time a woman was sexually assaulted. But women don't have that power. Men have the power to do that. They have the resources, the influence, and they're the ones perpetrating the violence.
There are a lot of good guys out here who are dying for the opportunity to do something about this, because after all, it's our mothers, our sisters, our aunts, our friends who are being victimized.
My brother, 3 sisters, and I, and my mother lived with a violent offender for 10 years, my stepfather. My mother was nearly beaten to death, I don't know how many times, and I watched my stepfather brutalize her, hospitalize her. And I remember standing behind my mother as she spoke to the police when I was a child, and feeling her body tremble as she apologized to them for what my stepfather would do. There was no training for police in those years. Most didn't understand the issue. No laws to enforce, and no policies were on the books for this issue. If you were a domestic violence victim, you were pretty much in trouble. I mean, you had no options. So we were pretty much trapped. And let me tell you, it's a desperate feeling.
The role of men is crucial in really getting to the root cause of ending violence.
One of the misconceptions before was that women needed to solve the question of violence. That's not possible to do because we are the perpetrators. So we must take responsibility for ending men's violence. Violence will not stop if we don't get engaged.
Luckily, over the years, that we have many men as allies and leaders that have had that courage to stand up and understand that.
In the early days, when I began to engage with men, particularly men who had been caught or identified as batterers, I was looking for the major differences between me and them. And pretty quickly, I saw much more commonality between me and them than difference. And I began to really believe and understand that this is all about how we as men collectively get socialized.
Boys, like say 2-year-old boys, 3, 4, 5-year-old boys are every bit as loving as girls are. What happens between the age of 4 and the age of 16 when a boy is pushing his girlfriend up against a locker, or he's 27, he's punching her in the face? The same boy who was a loving little boy. What happened in the intervening years? And then what can we do to intervene?
We all, at various degrees, have been socialized to have less value in women. We've been socialized to view women as property. We've been socialized to view women as objects. We believe that that's a formula for violence against women. Ain't nothing wrong with men being attracted to women and women being attracted to men. What's wrong is when my 5-year-old son started out saying, I like her, she's cute. And by the time he's 15 years old and he's in the cafeteria and he's saying, man, I like to hit that shit. That's the problem. What happened to she's cute? What happened over those 10 years to my son?
What was intended for myself and my brother was for us to be violent criminal offenders. We were trained to be criminals by a criminal. But the thing that kept my brother and I both out of violent relationships was a strong role model in our mother that made me understand that violence was wrong, that this is not the way men are supposed to treat women, that we would get out, we would survive it, we'd make it one day, and we did.
My name's George Lardner, and I'm a reporter for the Washington Post. I covered court trials, scandals, mafia cases, all sorts of things. But I didn't wake up to the problem of violence against women until I have the precise date, May 30th, 1992, when my daughter Kristen was killed in Boston by a young man under court orders to stay away from her. It is a man's issue, it's a family issue. It's about wives and daughters and mothers, and ultimately they have to recognize that it's a problem that ruins families and can ruin their lives.
If we begin with a starting premise that these are wide and systemic problems that are based in the existing institutional cultures that we've produced in our society, then the response has to be up to the task. We need bigger, better thinking.
I did grow up in an abusive household. My dad was very abusive to my mom. He never hit me, but the scars that a child takes with him into adulthood, they don't go away. When a man talks about it, I think you get people listening that you wouldn't normally get to listen to you, as opposed to the fact that people think it's a women's issue a lot of times.
Excuse me, I've been getting mixed messages about women and violence. I need a little clarification.
Uncle Bill, how am I supposed to grow up to respect women when I have such lousy role models?
Boys are never going to approach you.
Can you help me reshape my attitudes towards women?
You need to teach them that violence against women is wrong.
This is a mission. This country has to have an uncontestable message that violence doesn't work in the homes or in families. And it takes real men to stand up and say that.
How can we expect our sons to grow up and be men of integrity, treating women with respect, other men with respect, and speaking out when they see other boys and men treating women with disrespect? How can we expect our sons to do this if they don't see their fathers doing it?
Boys are swamped with messages. You have to be tough, you have to be in control, you have to use your aggression. What we really want to do is reframe that. Strength doesn't mean violence. We use sports as a platform because sports really involves tenets of responsibility and of respect, and those two are also important in relationships off the field.
I have a responsibility to make sure that my friends and the men that I claim as my friends be the best men that they can be, and being abusive is not the best man they can be. And how do we hold each other accountable around that?
How do you want men to be acting and behaving? Say your daughter's 5, when she comes of age. How do you want men to act and behave when she's 20? Well, what we do today will contribute to 15 years from now as to how men are acting and behaving.
So there's a lot of educating that we need to do. And it starts with individuals like yourself. And it starts with individuals who know what the word respect is all about.
How can we measure ourselves as a society? How can we go out and say we in any way are making progress when we have a culture that says just because you are physically stronger, you have the right to dominate?
We've been conditioned to if we're doing something for women or if we're supporting women in some way, then somehow that's against men. And it's not that way at all. It's kind of like we have two teams, and you're either with us guys or you're not. And it's one team. It's humanity.
1 in 4 men typically are the stats nationally is abusive to a female partner at some point in time in their life. So if the 3 and 4 all got together and coalesced and said, this is not okay, this is not what it means to be a man, my strength isn't for hurting, it would change, it would shift just by virtue of how men and human systems operate.
And it's about creating an environment where people don't tolerate domestic violence, and they do something about it. They don't stand by and allow it to happen. They say something about it.
Everyone has the possibility to influence young people on building healthy relationships. The ultimate goal is to really have people understand that they have a role to play in the solution.